everything that we talk about here today. So thank you all for joining on. If we haven't met before, I'm Andy Mccracken. I am Strategic Initiatives and Reporting Manager here at the NC Pandemic Recovery Office. So we work on a number of things, but we oversee the reporting work in our team. So looking forward to working with all of you for reporting on SFRF as we get these projects underway. So for the office hours today, I'm just going to provide some quick reminders and just make sure that there's sort of the foundations of how the reporting requirements are structured are sort of well understood across the board, and then we will leave the vast majority of the time for questions and discussion on anything that is less than clear for you all, or unusual circumstances or unique circumstances that you're trying to navigate. So we'll get started. This is a high-level breakdown of the way that we are structuring the reporting for state fiscal recovery funds. There are sort of three main buckets of information that we have to provide to U.S. Treasury. And I will say that the way we have structured this is largely to align with the requirements that are that have been provided by U.S. Treasury for reporting on SFRF projects. So we've tried to make it as simple as we can for you all as we coordinate the reporting on behalf of the state. That's not to say that it is all simple, but it is hopefully more simple than it otherwise would be at the way we've put this together. So there's project data. Basically, if there is a unique MOU that NC Pro has directly with your agency, there's a core set of questions that we are asking about those projects. And then there's supplemental information. The U.S. Treasury is requiring some specific information depending on the expenditure category and expenditure subcategory that under which your project has been designated. So there's some additional questions beyond those core questions that applies to everyone, but what those questions are vary a little bit. All of those are detailed in the reporting handbook that we released, I think it was last week and or a couple of weeks ago, and is up on our website at ncpro.nc.gov. So that's the project level data. There's subaward data that is required. The way that U.S. Treasury has structured the subaward reporting requirements is largely based on the FFATA requirements. They are modified FFATA rules. So if your agency is familiar with federal reporting and the FFATA requirements on subawards, it is a $50,000 threshold under the modified rules for SFRF, which means that anytime your agency is committing funds and then expending funds at $50,000 or more to another entity, that there is some detailed reporting information that has to come to NC Pro so we can get it to U.S. Treasury. However, U.S. Treasury is also looking for aggregated information on basically all other expenditures and obligations related to the implementation of your SFRF project. So there is aggregate information for commitments and expenditures under $50,000, which we can get into in detail if you have questions. Again, this was covered during interagency meeting last week and is covered in detail in the reporting guidance and the handbook that we have that we've published. But we can get into more specifics if you all want during this office hour. And then finally, there's performance measures. There is an annual report that we have to provide to U.S. Treasury at the end of July each year for our requirements for state agencies this year. We are going to have the first actual annual reporting deadline. It's going to be at the end of September. If there are, in order for us to meet the end of July report that NC Pro has to provide to U.S. Treasury, there are some specific projects about which we need to update information. So we will reach out directly to your agency about those projects if that affects you. Otherwise, the first annual performance reporting date will be at the end of September, and we will follow up with more details on what all of that will entail. A few notes about this initial reporting period. First is that normally the bulk of the reporting will be done on a monthly basis. However, since this is the first report, it's basically going to be a catch-up report for any activities that occurred during the months of April, May, and June. So you can report all those together. You don't have to submit multiple reports for those 3 months. You can just submit that all at once. Just make sure that anytime that there are specific dates associated with expenditures or obligations, that those dates are do reflect when those actually occurred. You can, but that it can all be reported together in one report. And then moving forward, it'll be a monthly reporting schedule. The second is that Pangram is being updated as we go. We actually do have we're about 95% done with having all of this information uploaded into Pangram to receive sort of the unique bits of details that we need to record from you all. Part of the reason why we're into July with that is we received updated guidance from U.S. Treasury a little less than a month ago, which had prompted us to sort of review everything that we needed to collect in Pangram, and there were changes. So we will send out a formal notice that Pangram is open and ready to receive your reports. But in the meantime, please start organizing your information. I think the most tedious bits of information, I would assume, are going to be some of the subaward reporting. We've provided that template on the NC Pro website for subaward reporting, so you can go ahead and get all that organized. So that once Pangram is fully ready to receive your expense reports, that you have all that ready to go, and you know, the bulk of the work is already completed. And then I already mentioned the annual reporting date for 2022. And as I just said, the suggested steps as you all roll out the reporting for SFRF is to first organize your subaward data. That is the most detailed bits of information, and having gone through one cycle of U.S. Treasury reporting on this already, I can say that's where it's probably the most, it's just the most tedious. It takes the most time. It's not difficult, but it just takes some time. So I'd suggest you organize that information first, and then prepare your project level data. The project level data will be entered directly into Pangram as opposed to a template. However, you can review what the specific data elements are in the reporting handbook on the NC Pro website. And then you get in, once we're able to get into Pangram, which is going to, I would expect today or tomorrow, you'll be able to go in and actually submit everything from there. So I'm going to pause sort of the prepared notes as we get to start off the office hours and open it up for any questions, comments, discussion items that we can work through as a group, or we can help support your agency as you prepare for this first reporting period.
Hello, Andy. This is Judy King from the System Office for Community Colleges. quick question for you, and because we're over here, 3 of us in 3 different offices, and we wanted to make sure, has the actual, you guys have talked about a template that could possibly be used to accumulate this information. Now, I have been out there this morning trying to find a template, and we're just trying to figure out where it might be. That evidently we're just looking at the wrong thing.
Sure, I will pull up the NC Pro website. And when you refer to a template, do you mean what do you mean? Yeah, so there is a subaward. There's a template for subaward reporting, which is on the NC Pro website now, and we can provide that that specific link in the chat, and then I'll pull up the page here and share the screen. There has, since we've issued the reporting template, there's been a request, or since we've issued the reporting guidance, there's been a request for a template for agencies to use with their with your subrecipients, to collect information from your subrecipients. We are working on that. I guess what I'll say is about that is the best that we will be able to do, frankly, is to provide a very generic template based on what we are required to provide to U.S. Treasury, and we are asking for you all to collect from your subrecipients. There is going to ultimately be additional information that you all will want to collect for the purposes of your responsibilities to monitor your subrecipients. So, for example, right now, U.S. Treasury does not require information about how your subawardees have spent their money. U.S. Treasury only needs to know that you have, committed funds and made payments on those commitments. That's where the federal reporting stops at this point. However, there's obviously a lot more information that you all need to sufficiently manage your subrecipients. So that any template that we provide, we can make suggestions, but it really should be the information that you all collect from your subrecipients really should be developed based on the unique programs that you are running and the subrecipients that you all are managing.
Okay, I don't know. Stop me, Stephanie or Barry, if you don't want me to say this out with everyone else. The community colleges have a letter in our file because we are awarding funds to the community colleges, and they are not considered subawards. So, but we, as we are thinking of this analysis of what we are doing, we are saying that they are recipients of the awards. Are we treating these the same way?
Yeah, the community colleges are beneficiaries.
Beneficiaries, that's the word. Thank you, Barry.
So right, so they're receiving financial assistance due to impacts of the pandemic, and so once you all give them the funding, if they're considered beneficiaries, then the story more or less ends there. So we do need, you would still need to report to us that you have committed funds and made payments to beneficiaries. The beneficiary sort of subrecipient distinction primarily affects what monitoring would be required for that entity. So again, the focus of the reporting work is really centered around the what we have to provide in terms of reporting to our oversight entities as a state. So that'd be the legislature and the U.S. Department of Education or U.S. Department of Treasury. But in terms of so you'd still need to report on those subawards to us, that they have occurred and that you've made payments on them. What you all might want to collect from the colleges for any programs under which they'd be designated as a beneficiary is fairly limited. You might want to, have a survey of how they plan to use the money or how they have used the money or anything like that, but it's not, that's really more for like research and interest purposes. That wouldn't necessarily be a, again, you are not required to monitor beneficiaries.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
We do have reports from the community colleges that show us how they have spent the funds. So, or how they used the funds would probably be a better term. So we do have that information available for us, and we can get that loaded. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, and for reference, so this is the NC Pro website. So if you haven't looked into this, the SFRF reporting guidance is here on this page. So if you go to guidance, just on the main, I'll go to the main website here. So you have the main menu up here, hit guidance. You have recipient reporting information. And then we have the handbook, clicks there, and then the subaward attachment is here. And again, that is the template to use if you are reporting subaward activity to NC Pro, not necessarily the template to use to collect information from your subrecipients, though we are working on a resource to support you all or to help guide you all in what you collect from your subrecipients in order to meet various reporting needs.
Great, thank you.
Hey, sorry, this is Heather with Agriculture. If we had our subrecipients fill out a FFATA form, do we just send that to you, or do I need to also fill out number 4? Because it looks like it's asking the same exact information.
So the FFATA information being specific to, I'm sorry, can you?
So yeah, so on your report, page number 4,
So
I had them fill out a FFATA form, and it looks like this is everything that's on the FFATA form. So do I just send you their FFATA form that they've already filled out?
No, we need to receive, so we need to receive information in a particular format in order for us to get stuff up to Department of Ed. A lot of it, where there is information that does overlap, and it does overlap heavily. Again, some of the subrecipient reporting is based on FFATA reporting, but there are some modified rules under SFRF.
And when we go to upload these, will we need to upload each sheet, or do we just save it like this big bulk sheet and upload it as a whole?
It will be here. I'll pull up the subaward.
And I'm sorry if you may get to that as we go on, so I apologize.
Oh no, this is what the time's for. So here's an example subaward attachment sheet. Have you seen this before?
So I know you guys went over it, but it got a little overwhelming, so I was waiting until today.
Sure, and it is overwhelming. I totally appreciate that. So the way that U.S. Treasury is structuring the information that we have to submit to them, what I'll say is we have to submit this information across multiple bulk upload templates to Treasury, and so we've worked to consolidate it and try to simplify it as much as we can with you all. So that's why a lot of this information is spread across a few different tabs, but it'll all sort of align and speak to each other. So for any entities to whom you are committing, you're obligating and then paying over $50,000 or more, there's the subrecipients tab, which has, again, this is going to be a lot of the similar information that would be reported under ordinary FFATA reports. Again, the threshold's different, but very similar information, nearly identical. So on here, you would tell us what your reporting period is. We need to identify by UEI or TIN. Need the subrecipient name, address, city, all that fun stuff. And then we get into the SAM.gov questions, which we can come back to if there are additional questions, but just want to walk through what's in this template. So this is just information about the entities that will be receiving some sort of award or contract from you all, from your agency.
Real quick, and that's just
yeah.
subrecipients. Beneficiaries do not need to show up on there, correct?
Beneficiaries do. So thank you for clarifying that. Yeah. So
And is it beneficiaries just over 50?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is where we, Treasury has
Y'all are
used
killing us.
overlapping. Well, no, listen, we've tried to simplify. We've really tried to thread some needles that we've been sort of handed here, but Treasury is using a lot of overlapping terms to describe different things for different purposes. So here, subrecipient means anyone that you will be committing funding to, whether that's a beneficiary, a contractor, or more of a traditional subawardee. It's really
Andy,
anyone that's, yeah, go ahead.
So
Eric.
Andy, an individual community college, that you would want it down to that level?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
One other question. Oh, I'm sorry, Andy. One other question I have. If we have grants that we have not pulled down any money for yet, or there has been no expenditure or anything, is there any reporting requirement at all for anything that we have not pulled down or spent?
For the month of July, no. If you all have not received any funding on an award, or you haven't obligated any, or you've received funds and haven't obligated anything under it, or spent anything under it, you do not need to submit a report this month. That is really just to try to narrow the scope of what everyone has to accomplish in a relatively short time frame. Starting in August, you will need to submit reports, even if it's 0 across the board. We'll need to see some sort of report on each project, so that we know that there aren't reports being missed, either not being submitted or that we've missed them coming in some way. So for this month, no, if you haven't pulled down funds, if there's been absolutely no activity on a project, you do not need to submit a report.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is the subrecipient page. So again, this is just information about the entity itself. Tab 5 is information about what you are committing to those entities. So you'll identify the subaward to the subrecipient using the UEI or TIN. You'll need to assign a subaward number for each subaward. Our recommendation is that number, so first of all, it needs to be all numeric. And we're recommending that it be between 3 and 10 digits. It can be up to 20. However, 20 is the limit that U.S. Treasury is providing. It can be a number that you all already use internally. It doesn't need to be a brand new number. If you already generate subaward numbers that meet these requirements, then you can go ahead and use those. But it is something that will need to be used to uniquely identify each subaward during the process of managing the awards in excess of $50,000. So some of the information that's listed, this is really where you'll identify whether it's a grant or contractor. In general, you'll be able to see clearly the items under subaward type will be marked as contract, and then there are a few different options there to best reflect what the arrangement is with that entity. For grants, there's, the options are lump sum payments or reimbursable, and those would be for more traditional, a sub grant where that other entity is carrying out some of the work to advance the purpose of the project. Direct payments will be for beneficiaries. So if you were it is a payment to an entity, and that's kind of the end of the story, that'll be a direct payment. Transfers are really intended to be, this transfer came up during coronavirus relief funds. We don't have guidance on this for state fiscal recovery funds yet, but under coronavirus relief funds, transfers were between the state government to local governments specifically. And so that's generally what we are thinking that they mean for SFRF, and then loans are pretty straightforward here. So those are the subaward types. You'll indicate what the actual subaward amount is, what the obligation is. When you made that obligation, you have to identify a primary sector. This is a drop down directly from what U.S. Treasury has provided to us. There is an other category. Feel free to make use of that. There's the period of performance, and then the primary place of performance. So it may be that an entity is based in Raleigh, but they're going to be carrying out their work in, I don't know, name a place in Dare County. So this is where they would identify that the actual work to be done is going to occur elsewhere. And then U.S. Treasury wants to know what is the purpose of the subaward funds. So what is the you are committing funds to another entity to carry out sort of underlying purpose of the project that you are managing. So how does that subaward relate to that purpose? And then finally, they want a description of what activities will be carried out under that subaward to advance that purpose. Any questions about the subaward tab?
Sorry, yes. What if it's direct payments to people? We don't have that kind of information really, especially like, go back to like the, we don't really have contract dates. I have a date where I wrote a check, but I don't have, keep scrolling over a little bit. Like I'm not gonna really have the period performance start again. I can use that as like the check date, but I don't have a performance end date because of why these checks were cut. And I certainly don't. Is it gonna kick back if I have spaces that are blank? Or am I allowed to just put aid payments due to COVID related swine and dairy issues?
If it is
something like that?
If it is a payment to a beneficiary, which is what I would understand that generally to be, or just making a direct payment to someone, is that right?
Yeah, that's what this first board. Yeah, that's what this first report's going to be for us.
Right. So I would say for that, the period of performance, it is fine if that is just the date on which you submitted the check, or you sent the check to them, and the start date and end date can be the same thing.
Okay, it won't kick it back for you if I use those dates as the same dates.
I will. We'll triple check on that.
Okay. The only other thing I could think of that I could do is we had an application period, and I could put the performance start date as the application, the day that portal opened.
Is there a particular period? So if they're receiving funds as a result of, some financial assistance because of the impact of the pandemic, is there a particular period under which they have to demonstrate they experienced hardship or anything like that?
They don't have to show it all on the same day. But we did open a portal for them to apply. So I could use that day, and then the performance end date, I could just use as the day we started issuing checks.
I think, so I'm going to ask Mikey on my team to follow up on this. So we just make sure that what we send to Treasury wouldn't get kicked back this way, but I believe it is fine if the period of performance is, June 1st. If you wrote a check, if you sent out a check on June 1st, and then I for a beneficiary, I believe it would be fine if the period of performance start date is June 1st and that the end date is also June 1st.
Okay, I can certainly do that, but yeah, just give me a call. Yeah, give me a call back.
Yeah.
I just don't want it to kick back and you guys like have problems because of us.
If we run into challenges with submitting the report, first of all, last go around we didn't all have the NC Pro team. Treasury didn't get us all access to the portal until about 2.5 days before the reporting deadline. So it was a quick rush, but we're going to be, now that we have access, we'll be ahead of it. So we'll know earlier on if there are issues with it, but if need be, we'll manage it on our end. I think you all provide us the most accurate information that you have available, and we'll manage it as best as we
If
can.
anybody can break it, I would probably do it for you.
I think there will be a lot of chances for everyone to break different pieces of this, but yeah. So I think performance start and end, fine if that's the same day. Mikey's going to check into that, and if there's anything unusual, that we'll So what I will say, we are tracking what questions and issues come up during these sessions, and we'll publish an FAQ on our website as well. So we'll track that and publish that there.
So Andy, this is Lori from UNC Chapel Hill.
Mm-hmm.
Once we haven't really started yet, so I don't really have anything to report currently, but will you have these sessions later in the fiscal year, or am I just going to be stuck?
No, you won't be stuck. We'll hold sessions like this each month as we approach deadlines.
Okay.
Cool. I think when we have a few months under our collective belts, I think we'll probably slow down on those and just do it sort of as needed. But certainly in the first few months here, we'll provide these sessions.
Sure. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So that's the subaward info, and then there's the expenditure info, and Heather, this is where the same date would apply again. So on the expenditure page, again, you identify the reporting month, provide the subaward number that the expenditures are related to, and then expenditure start date, expenditure end date, and expenditure amount. Expenditure start and end can be the same date. That is totally fine. And then the expenditure amount, of course, is that last piece. So that's it for the detailed reporting. Any questions about the detailed reporting for entities receiving $50,000 or more?
Hey, Andy, I just checked our spreadsheets that we submitted for the last go around to U.S. Treasury, and then we have the same dates for many of the projects, so that shouldn't be a problem.
All right. If we pass through the system in April, I'm confident we can do it in July. So yeah. So Heather, then the performance start and end date can be the same day.
So Andy, do this expenditure tab, is that just for one particular month, or do you want that to be cumulative?
It'll be, good question. So this will this entire document will be ultimately cumulative. So say you've already submitted your June data, you're sending us your July data, and on the same award, let's just use one of these same examples again. Say you're making a payment on that same award the next month, you just enter that separate payment.
Okay, so you just, once we start a report, then we're just going to add to it each month. Okay.
That's right.
Gotcha.
That's right.
Okay.
And you want a different one of these for each of the different pots of money that we have?
That's right.
Okay.
Yep. And so this will all, and you'll see here, this rolls up just so you can check, and it rolls up into on a quarterly basis here, but you'll be able to check that the numbers are showing up appropriately. This main page is where you'll tell us which month under which you're actually submitting your report, what's the date, or sorry, the month for which, whatever the reporting month is that you're covering, the activities that you're covering, the date that you're submitting the report, whoever is actually preparing this document. And so this would be then updated each month. You'll save a copy basically, and then start adding your next month of data, and then just identify the reporting month using that the drop down under reporting month. So so that's it for the detailed reporting. I did just want to quickly show you the aggregate reporting. So this is for any entities that you're obligating funds or paying funds under $50,000. You report them in aggregate. So the options here are, and I apologize if this is tiny, this is all mapped out in more detail, again, in the reporting handbook. But the options here are contracts, grants, loans, transfers, or direct payments. So if you awarded new contracts for the month of July, and in aggregate, they are, say in aggregate, it's another $70,000 worth of contracts, and you have made in aggregate $20,000 worth of payments on contracts in July, that would get reported this way. And then similar for any activities under grants or direct payments, you would just add whatever the new obligations or new expenditures for that next reporting period just gets added there. And so it all gets grouped together. And then finally, payments to individuals always get reported in aggregate. That includes payments to sole proprietorships. So if you were sending in a check to, Joe Smith, who does business just as Joe Smith in a sole proprietorship, or Joe Smith Farms or whatever, if it is a sole proprietorship, U.S. Treasury wants to see that in aggregate reporting, regardless of the amount committed to them or paid to them. So that is one distinction I wanted to note. But all of that gets reported in aggregate here by month. So that is the subaward reporting template. Any questions about this? This is where I think there's, at least when we were preparing the U.S. Treasury report last quarter, this is where we spent the most time, because it is sort of the most detailed bits of information.
I have a quick question. This is Greer Arthur at UNC Chapel Hill. Earlier on, you clarified that you would need a separate one of these documents for each pot of money. Do you mean each MOU?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, well, I'll keep that template nearby in case we need to reference back to it. Are there any other reporting questions?
Real quick, I had a quick question about the funds. On the one where you're talking about we paid to individuals under 50,000, do they need to have cleared our account to report it? Do you care?
That's a good question. I would, whatever your agency would consider being like fully expended.
Fully expended. Okay, that works.
Use that and
Use
just
that
be
as my
consistent.
definition, as my guide. Okay, I can
Yeah.
do that. That works.
And part of the deal with obligations and expenditures is largely, I know depending on accounting systems, obligation means different things. U.S. Treasury with obligations really means that you have X amount of money and that you have committed some portion of it. That's what's been obligated, and then later on the expenditure should go up and match that. It's not an encumbrance that ultimately drops down once it's been paid. The obligation is cumulatively how much of the funds that you've received have you actually committed to other entities. Treasury wants to know that because as we approach the December 31st, 2024 obligation deadline, they want to know that we've actually obligated all $5.4 billion in North Carolina, and we have another 2 years to pay that out, which would be then the expenditures. And so once we get to December 31st, 2026, that's when they need to know that funds have actually been expended, that they've left the accounts at that point. So that's hopefully just a helpful reference point for how they're thinking about this.
Yep, thank you.
Yep. Are there any other questions or items you'd like to discuss? I'm going to put the link to the reporting guidance and that subboard template into the chat here. Well, if you've had your questions answered, feel free to drop off, and we'll stick around for another 15 minutes here and see if anyone else has anything else to raise. But thank you all for joining. I know this is there's a lot of stuff that has to happen here, and really appreciate your partnership in doing all this. We wouldn't be asking you if it weren't important for the state to comply with the federal rules, or important for really keeping track of what has happened with all of our COVID recovery funds across the state, and here specific to state fiscal recovery funds. So we will please know that we know that your time and energy on all of this is very valuable, and the extent to which we can make things simpler or clearer, please let us know. And we'll be as transparent as absolutely possible in why we are asking for things and when and all of that. So appreciate your time today. And like I said, feel free to hop off if you need. NC Pro team will stick around for another 15 minutes in case there are any remaining questions.